On Tech News Today, Apple got caught throwing Google under the bus over kids' downloads. Plus, Amazon makes one publisher an indecent proposal. And LG unveils a cell phone smartwatch, not for you, for children. All that and more coming up right now.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, July 9th, 2014. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Mike Elgan. Jason is off this week. Anthony Nielsen is filling in. Our co-anchor today and every Wednesday is Sarah Silbert, a senior editor at Engadget. Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks for having me, as usual.
So we're working you pretty hard these days. We had you on TN2, our Tech News Tonight, yesterday at 4 p.m. Pacific.
Yeah, I'm officially part of the Twit family now.
I know. We just drag you in at a moment's notice and talk about things such as the Internet of Things, which you talked about yesterday. And that's kind of a crazy category, isn't it? I've been talking about this, writing about it as well for some time, and you can just see the train wreck coming because, as you were talking about yesterday on the show, there's too many standards. It's just going to be
too many standards to solve the problem of too many competing technologies, but now we're having competing standards. It's just a huge irony, a huge mess on top of a huge mess. Pretty crazy.
People assume that it's all going to go fine because we have lots of great standards for the Internet, but what the difference is that when the Internet came about and IP and all those kinds of standards emerged, there weren't all these powerful companies with vested interests and trillions of dollars to throw around. It was a bunch of scientists and researchers and network specialists building something that they believed in and really desperately wanted to all work together and interconnect and so on. And nowadays, you've got companies with so much at stake, and so they form these coalitions and these alliances, and they try to form what they say is the standard for the whole industry, but then there are multiple competing standards, and it's at multiple levels for the Internet of Things. There are wireless protocols, there are handshaking protocols, and I just don't see how it's ever going to be solved. We still don't have, for example, one of my favorite examples is the television remote control problem. You buy several devices, you end up with 5 remote controls. Nobody knows how to program them. They don't work together. The interfaces are horrible. And if we can't solve that problem, then how are we going to solve the Internet of Things problem?
It's true. We're definitely pretty far away from any good streamlined solution there.
Yeah. But I think we will have little local Internet of Things, just as long as you buy into the right standard. It'll be like Apple versus Google and so on. I just don't think we'll ever have the nirvana that people are talking about where everything just automatically connects and works together seamlessly. I'm a pessimist. Yeah. I just don't think it's ever going to happen.
No, I'm with you there.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Let's jump into the news. You may recall Apple getting spanked by the FTC over kids downloading paid apps or content on their parents' iPhones without their parents' permission. Today we learned that Apple threw Google under the bus too, urging the FTC to crack down on Google. The information was uncovered by a Politico reporter's Freedom of Information Act request. And Sarah Silbert, this is a kind of an interesting story because the FTC has an obsession with protecting children, protecting children's privacy, and that seems legitimate to me. And of course, one of the problems, which actually was first brought into the public consciousness by The Daily Show, where they were mocking all the things that people could buy from Apple, all the things kids could buy from Apple. And
right. The FTC definitely has a right to be concerned about this, but kind of the weird thing, I think, from Apple's perspective is that the FTC approached Apple and Apple made changes to make it harder for these in-app purchases to happen. But it's still being kind of pursued by the FTC, which I know Tim Cook has said is unfair.
Yeah, absolutely. They were fixing this problem back in 2011, and Apple did what they believed was a very thorough solution to lock down the problem. And then the FTC pursued Apple as if they did nothing. And, there's an argument to be made in favor of the FTC, and that argument basically is that these companies can change their policies instantly at any time. So they could protect kids and then throw a switch and then suddenly they're not protecting kids. And the FTC is a very slow-moving dinosaur of an organization that takes a long time to enforce things and to regulate things. And so they want to get agreements locked down and rules established and their authority established so that companies can't just instantly change their mind. And there is some Jeff Dunn Roberts with GigaOM reported today that he believes that it's likely that Google is already in talks with the FTC over this. The FTC also approached Amazon about this same issue, and Amazon told them to take a hike. They said, "We'll see you in court." And that's kind of Amazon's approach to many things, which is they tend to be very confrontational. But I think it's almost inevitable that the FTC is going to be regulating this for both Amazon and Google in the same way that they did for Apple, no matter what those companies do. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. So Sarah, speaking of Amazon, Amazon made something of an indecent proposal to one of their publishers.
Yep, exactly right. So the ongoing battle over ebook pricing between Amazon and the publisher Hachette is just not going to stop anytime soon. The latest is that Amazon proposed offering Hachette authors 100% of the profit from digital book sales in an attempt to speed up the negotiation. But Hachette, unsurprisingly, said this proposal is bogus. We're not accepting it. So to tell us more about that, we have Jason Abbruzzese from Mashable. Jason, can you start off by explaining exactly what this proposal would mean, both for the two companies involved and the authors?
Sure. Well, basically, for the duration of the standoff between Hachette and Amazon, any ebook sold under the Hachette label, all of that money would go to the authors. Basically, as I understand it, Amazon said not just the profit, but actually the entire sale price would go to authors. That could mean for authors, particularly those who are debuting new books, really a lot of money in the case of millions of dollars. Actually, one author I spoke with, Douglas Preston, said that when he ran the numbers, he thought that his upcoming new book, that might mean $2 million extra dollars in his pocket. But he also said that he felt that that was in some sense blood money, that he would be taking that out of the pocket of his publisher that he's been working with for years.
Does that sound like a passive-aggressive kind of way to get the authors on the side of Amazon? I mean, it sounds kind of disingenuous to me.
A lot of people reacted like that, and it's understandable because I think a lot of the authors themselves didn't think that this was a particularly attractive deal, because they know that this is part of a situation in which they're really going after Hachette. They're not going after the authors, and that Amazon has been more or less losing the PR battle a little bit. It seems like they've caught most of the heat, most of the flack in the situation. That even if the authors don't turn to their side because of this deal, the average person might say like, oh, well, I can see, why Amazon might be on the side of the authors. They just offered to give them all the money from these ebook sales.
Absolutely. And, the other component of this, of course, is that Amazon offers an alternative to the entire model of publishers editing works and so on. For example, if you're an author, you can go directly to Amazon. You can sign up for their services. They will find editors for you. They will design your ebook. They'll do all that for you. So really, Amazon appears to be out to destroy the publishing industry and replace it with itself. And, I think they are clearly a monopoly in ebooks. I think that books, intellectual property in the form of books, is a very sensitive topic associated with freedom of speech. And I think that the government is always going after these different companies for different antitrust transgressions, which are pretty flimsy and pretty flaky, and then they just ignore Amazon completely taking over the book industry, essentially. Ebooks, clearly the future of books. And so I just think it's shameful that the government isn't doing anything about this, where Amazon is just trying to crush an entire industry in the same way, sort of, that they crushed diapers.com and then bought them for pennies on a dollar because they used algorithms to lower the price of what they could sell for, and so on. I just think this is just an awful state of affairs, and I think it's terrible that government isn't doing anything about it.
Sure, and we may end up seeing government action soon if this does not get resolved or it continues on, really because at some point we are going to need kind of new regulations to dictate this market. Amazon has been so disruptive and changed things so heavily that really the old way of doing things is clearly not tenable anymore. But however, to play devil's advocate, what a lot of people have said is that publishers for years have been holding publishers over the fire, have been really grinding extra shares of book revenues out of them, and that Amazon has actually been able to come in now And because of their leverage and because of things like independent author publishing, the publishers have suddenly had to, really be a lot nicer to the authors. So there maybe is a little bit of silver lining here. And some of the people you'll talk to right now will say that, the current state of publishing is actually very good. That authors have never been better. It's never been easier to get a book published, especially if you're willing to kind of independently publish. What's scary is, as you've been kind of saying, down the road, what happens once every publisher is eliminated by Amazon, and then they're the ones able to dictate terms to basically everybody.
And I think another big problem, and that has to be mentioned, is the elephant in the room, is the decline of the publishing industry in terms of quality. Years ago, the way it worked is that the publishers specialized in discovering talented writers. They would, and through also using agents and so on, but they would somehow discover great young writers. They would give them an advance, essentially. The writers could go off and spend quality time writing a book. They would submit it. They'd go back and forth with the editor. They would assign designers and book jacket designers and editors and copy editors and all this whole staff of people to produce a super high quality work, and then get them into bookstores and expose readers to these new authors and sort of cultivate fandoms around authors. And that's how the publishing industry used to work. But because of the big chain mass marketing of books, it's been in horrible decline. And nowadays, if you don't have a platform, you can't get a book published in almost every case. For example, let's say some 22-year-old brilliant writer emerged and was just writing incredible novels. Okay, they're not going to get published because the publishing company would say, look, what's your platform? Do you have 1 million followers on Twitter? Do you have a TV show? Do you have this? No, you don't have those things? Okay, well, sorry. We're too busy publishing Snooki's new book from the Jersey Shore because Snooki has a platform. Suzanne Summers can publish poetry because everybody knows her from the TV show Three's Company. I mean, this is how publishing works now. And so you go into the bookstore and it's a lot of trash in the bookstore. And ultimately, these publishing companies have devolved into nothing more than simple investors in individuals with platforms. And there's also been a decline in the quality of design and editing and all of that stuff. So that's the other part of this that it makes me not share that much of a tear for the destruction of the publishing industry, because they've allowed their industry to devolve into something that is of low quality and doesn't do its fundamental job, which is discovering new talent. They just don't do that anymore. So it's a new world in publishing. We don't know where we're going to land on all this, but so far it looks like Amazon is being very, very aggressive. Now, Jason, I wanted to ask you your opinion. I tossed off the opinion that Amazon is a monopoly. Would you agree with that, or would you disagree? I know it's a controversial point.
Based on the numbers we have and knowing how many, knowing their percentage of the ebook market, to say that they're not a monopoly it'd be a really hard position to defend at this point. They have something like 60% off the top of my head, I think, is the number that gets tossed around. And, for one group to have that kind of position on a market as big as books, as big as ebooks is already, it's dominant. It's dominant. Maybe it's not a monopoly in the sense that there's nowhere else you can go, but it's a monopoly in the sense that they, basically run the entire industry.
Yeah, I think the thing that makes it a monopoly is not just that they have, as you said, about 60%, but that there isn't a second company with the other 40%. The rest of the 40% is divided among a gazillion tiny players. And so if you're a publisher and you want to get a lot of readers, there's no place to go except Amazon. You can't really get a big audience with an ebook without Amazon. And so from the author's perspective, they're pretty much of a monopoly. So
and I think going forward, that's going to have to be something that is looked at by the government, and ideally at some point, it's going to get to the point where it can't be ignored, and these kind of disputes become so common that eventually they'll have to step in.
All right. Well, Jason Abbruzzese is on Mashable.com, of course, and you can find him on Twitter at Jason Abbruzzese, and I'm going to spell his last name because otherwise you'll never find him. His last name is spelled Abbruzzese. Jason, I want to thank you for coming on Tech News today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, LG introduced a smartwatch for children. It's called Kizon, and it lets parents track their kids and lets kids call parents with pre-programmed numbers. Some people have criticized this. One author in The Guardian, Sarah Silbert, has criticized this as being a way to essentially tag and release your kids like they're some kind of walrus or something like that. But, of course, there's the safety issue where, you can basically call your kids at any time. And one of the interesting features about this is that when parents call their kids' watch, it rings 10 times, and then it just answers automatically. So even if kids don't answer the phone with their own actions, parents will be put into contact with their kids. And so it's kind of an interesting thing. I mean, what do you think about this category of, I guess you'd call it a wearable?
I mean, it's interesting because that's definitely the most controversial feature. This isn't a smartphone at all. I mean, that's really, it has 2G and 3G cellular networks, but really it's just a feature phone with that ability. So it's really all about tracking. It's a wearable that's meant for safety, for tracking your kids. So it's a new kind of wearable, I guess you would say, really about knowing where your kids are.
Yeah, and I'm a little bitter and resentful because this is a phone built into a watch, and where's mine? I want one of these. Why are these kids getting it before I am? It's outrageous. It's outrageous, I tell you, Sarah. Now, this is available July 10th in Korea, North America and Europe in the third quarter of this year. Pricing and availability haven't been disclosed. And it's water resistant and comes in blue, pink, or green. I might just get one of these. I just really want, the ability to make a call from my wrist. I mean, you
can have 10 numbers pre-programmed. That's probably enough to talk to the people you need to.
That's right.
Yeah, maybe for the interim, it's a good option.
Right, 10 numbers. Let me see. So my wife, my two sons, the pizza place, the Chinese place. Totally 10 numbers is plenty. That's all I would need. Yeah, that's all I need. Well, Google's really, we're talking about pricing and monopolies and all that kind of stuff. Google's got a new squeeze on cloud storage. What's going on with that, Sarah?
Right. So beyond ebooks, obviously, the other big pricing war is cloud storage. Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are all just really, really trying to make their offerings more competitive. The latest is Google offering businesses 2 terabytes of data for free to store in the cloud for a year, which is a little more competitive than what you'll see from Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure. So Google Cloud Platform is offering this free storage through a startup that it's partnered with called Panzura. And with this offering, you'll be able to access that 2 terabytes for free from one location. So you will have to pay more if you want to access it from multiple locations. But still, obviously, like, things are getting very, very impressively cheap. So there's not any really cost barrier if businesses want to get into the cloud.
Yeah. And it's kind of the drug dealers deal where, they get you hooked on it, right? And then they'll charge you later. Obviously, if you're going to fill up 2 terabytes over the cloud, you're not going to easily take that with you at the end of the year and go to another service. You're going to pay whatever it is they're going to be charging at that point. It's also curious, I think, that they're using Panzura because Google itself is just masterful at having amazingly huge data centers and incredible capacity for cloud storage, and yet they're using a partner. I don't really understand why they're doing that. I don't understand why either Google or Panzura is doing this. It's just kind of a curious thing, but I guess the going is getting weird now that that Amazon and all these other companies are competing so heavily to get very small amounts of money for very large amounts of storage.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about the rationale of that either. I'm sure there is one, but not that we're seeing.
All right. Well, Apple lost a patent battle in China over Siri. Apple had sued both a Chinese company called Shenzhen Network Technology and also China's Patent Review Committee to force a verdict over the issue of Shenzhen's claim that Siri infringed their patent. A Chinese court ruled against Apple, but now Apple plans to appeal with the Beijing Higher People's Court. In China, the People's Court is a court rather than a TV show. So, this is a kind of a curious thing. The company that is suing, that had originally brought the complaint against Apple, saying that their product was the first to have the technology that Apple uses in Siri, which is seems very unlikely. Siri's technology was developed by the Pentagon and by Stanford with an institute called SRI. And that's been in the works for many, many years. And essentially it all boiled down to Siri, which then Apple purchased. And so the idea that this Chinese company, which had this cute little cat-themed, question and answer thing, the idea that Apple stole their intellectual property from that company seems very, very likely. And in fact, Apple said that they had never heard of this company or its product when they introduced Siri a few years ago. So kind of a strange thing. But you know what? The Chinese courts are not always that fair when there's a dispute between Chinese companies and foreign companies. So it's kind of an odd thing that Apple is facing, and of course Apple has had other patent battles in China and over the iPad, for example, and so we'll see how that goes. Well, Sarah, AT&T, we were talking about the wristwatch for kids that can make calls on its own. Obviously, that doesn't need a phone connection to connect over the phone network. And AT&T thinks that's a pretty good model, don't they?
Right. You were asking where is your smartwatch that can make calls. It might be coming soon, at least according to Glenn Lurie from AT&T. He says for wearables to really take off, they need to be not dependent on other devices like your smartphone. So they need a cellular connection. And he gave the example of a fitness device, a fitness tracker that would automatically post your workouts to social networks and maybe stream music as you're working out. But he also talked about how this could be really important in the healthcare space, letting people live independently longer by connecting them to caregivers, and how a cellular connection can really improve that. But the thing with this is, does that mean that people are going to have to pay extra for a data plan just for their wearable? I mean, I don't really see that happening.
Well, what AT&T can't really see happening is a category of consumer electronics that does, in fact, connect to the internet, but which uses the existing connection. I mean, they're probably panicking over the prospect that all these devices, this whole new category that everybody's going to be using, is going to be, connecting through the phone connection, and it's all part of the same data plan, and they're probably freaking out and looking for a way to charge extra for this extra traffic. If I know AT&T, and I do, that's pretty much how they're looking at this. On the one hand, it's kind of a cool idea to have devices that can connect without a phone, but on the other, it's if you look at Google I/O, Google's really putting the phone front and center and in the middle of your world. And that makes a lot of sense because the phone is really good at connecting to the internet. You always are going to have your phone. I don't care what kind of wearable device comes out. You're still going to want to carry a smartphone around, at least for the devices that we've seen so far, like Android Wear devices, the rumored iWatch, Google Glass, and so on. Those things really function well and gain a whole lot of benefits by connecting through the Bluetooth. Remember, they're using Bluetooth 4 or Bluetooth Low Energy, which is the secret sauce for the wearable revolution, simply because it's so low powered. But if that device has to connect over Wi-Fi or to a cellular connection, that's going to need a much bigger battery. Its battery life is going to be much worse with the same battery. And so I think that this plan by AT&T really benefits AT&T and its competitors, but not really the users or the industry or anyone else. So I think I'm kind of skeptical about this one.
Yeah, at the same time, though, we're seeing some of the criticisms about the early Android Wear devices, that they're just really your smartphone, an extension of your smartphone on your wrist. And there is some real convenience factors there. But at the same time, if you can really make this a great product, really that you don't need your phone, you can just carry your watch around, that might be pretty cool. But as you say, there are a lot of hurdles to get to that place in terms of design and battery. So we're definitely not anywhere near that being the reality.
Yeah, and in related and in almost irrelevant news, there is actually a Flappy Bird clone that is now available on Android Wear. Believe it or not, and it's called Flopsy Droid, and you can go to the Play Store and download that. I did it this morning. It hasn't shown up on my watch yet, fortunately. Otherwise, I would have delayed the show while I played it, obviously. But yeah, there you go. Flappy Bird clone called Flopsy Droid on Android Wear. The first game, is that the first game? It's got to be the first game. I haven't seen another game, the very first game. So yeah, there it is. It's a little Android robot that flies through the pipes or whatever those things are, and gosh, what are you going to do? Yeah. So there you go. I'll give a full report in tomorrow's episode because I'll spend all my time between now and then playing this game, no doubt. Well, that's the tech news today. Sarah Silbert, thank you so much for joining us as always. Tell us what you've been working on these days at Engadget.
Well, Google I/O was our last big show. So back to the daily grind, just covering tech news as always.
Yeah, as you know, Leo Laporte has been on vacation for some time, and I got to do one of his shows called Triangulation, And I got to interview Peter Rojas, who, of course, is one of the founders of Engadget.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah, it was
That's
a
really
great
cool.
interview. He's a great guy. I really like him a lot. He's just a wonderful person, in addition to being a brilliant entrepreneur. And he's launched, so many sites, Engadget, Gizmodo, Joystick, and many others. And so that was really cool to talk about the early days. And, it's funny to think of a site like Engadget, which has so much traffic and mind share these days, back when it was just a little tiny, site that, basically was just starting out and had a couple of employees, and now look at it. Anyway, that was a really interesting interview. But anyway, thank you so much. We'll see you next Wednesday when you co-anchor next week.
All right. Take care.
All right. Well, you can subscribe to Tech News Today on iTunes, YouTube, Feedly, Yahoo, RSS, and many other options. You can choose your favorite way to subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. And please send us your thoughts and opinions. Send email to tnt@twit.tv or leave voicemail at 260-TNT show. Also, don't miss our evening newscast, Tech News Tonight, at 4 p.m. Pacific tonight and every weeknight right here on the Twit Network. I think Padre's doing tonight. My name is Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. See you tomorrow.